Day. Get on your feet. It's time. The butt of a rifle hits me in the ribs. I'm yanked out of a dream-filled sleep. First of my mother walking me to grade school, then of Eden's bleeding irises and the red number under our porch. 2 pairs of hands drag me up before I can see properly, and I scream as my wounded leg tries to take some of my weight. I didn't think it was possible for it to hurt more than it did yesterday, but it does. Tears spring to my eyes. When my vision sharpens, I can tell that my leg is swollen under the bandages. I want to scream again, but my mouth is too dry. The soldiers drag me out of my cell. The commander who had visited me the day before is waiting in the hall for us, and when she sees me, she breaks into a smile. "Good morning, Day," she says. "How are you?" I don't reply. One of the soldiers pauses to give the commander a quick salute. "Commander Jameson," he says. "Are you ready for him to proceed to sentencing?" The commander nods. "Follow me, and please gag him, if you don't mind. We wouldn't want him yelling obscenities the whole time, would we?" The soldier salutes again, then stuffs a cloth into my mouth. We make our way through the long halls. Again we pass the double doors with the red number, then several doors under heavy guard, and still others with large glass panels. My mind whirls. I need a way to confirm my guess, a way to talk to someone. I'm weak from dehydration, and the pain has made me sick to my stomach. Now and then, I see a person inside one of those glass-paneled rooms, cuffed to a wall and screaming. I can tell from their tattered uniforms that they are POWs from the colonies. What if John's inside one of these rooms? What will they do with him? After what seems like an eternity, we step into an enormous main hall with a high ceiling. Outside, a crowd is chanting something, but I can't make out the words. Soldiers line the rows of doors that lead to the front of the building. And then, the soldiers part. We're outside. The daylight blinds me, and I hear the shouts of hundreds of people. Commander Jameson holds up a hand, then turns to her right while the soldiers drag me up to a platform. Now, I can finally see where I am. I'm in front of a building at the heart of Batalla, the military sector of Los Angeles. An enormous crowd is turned out to watch me, held back and patrolled by an almost equally large platoon of gun-wielding soldiers. I had no idea this many people cared enough to see me in person today. I raise my head as high as I can and see the jumbotrons embedded in the surrounding buildings. Every single one has a close-up of my face accompanied by frantic news headlines. "Notorious criminal known as Day arrested, to be sentenced today outside Batalla Hall. Dangerous menace to society finally caught. Teen renegade known as Day claims to work alone, no affiliation with the Patriots." I stare at my face on the jumbotrons. I'm bruised, bloody, and listless. A bright streak of blood stains one thick strand of my hair, painting a dark red streak into it. I must have a cut on my scalp. For a moment, I'm glad that my mother is alive to see me like this. The soldiers shove me toward a raised block of cement in the center of the platform. To my right, a judge, cloaked in scarlet robes and gold buttons, waits behind a podium. Commander Jameson stands beside him, and to her right is the girl. She's decked out in her full uniform again, stoic and alert. Her expressionless face is turned toward the crowd, but once, just once, she turns to look at me before quickly looking away. "Order! Please, order in the crowd!" The judge's voice crackles over the jumbotron's loudspeakers, but the people continue to shout, and the soldiers push back against them. The entire front row is clogged with reporters, their cameras and microphones shoved in my direction. Finally, one of the soldiers barks out a command. I look over at him. It's the young captain who shot my mother. His soldiers fire several shots into the air. This settles the crowd. The judge waits a few seconds to make sure the silence holds, then adjusts his glasses. "Thank you for your cooperation," he begins. "I know this is a rather warm morning, so we'll keep the sentencing brief. As you can see, our soldiers are present and serve to remind you all to keep calm during these proceedings. Let me begin with an official announcement that on December 21st at 8:36 a.m. Ocean Standard Time, the 15-year-old criminal known as Day was arrested and taken into military custody." A huge cheer erupts, but as much as I expected this, I also hear something else that surprises me. Boos. Many of the people in the crowd don't have their fists in the air. A few of the louder protesters are approached by street police, cuffed, and dragged away. One of the soldiers restraining me strikes me in the back with his rifle. I fall to my knees. The instant my wounded leg hits the cement, I scream as loud as I can. The sound's muffled by my gag. The pain blinds me. My swollen leg trembles from the impact, and I can feel a gush of fresh blood on my bandages. I almost kneel over before the soldiers prop me up. When I look toward the girl, I see her wince at the sight of me and turn her eyes to the ground. The judge ignores the commotion. He begins by listing off my crimes, then concludes, "In light of the defendant's past felonies, and in particular his offenses against the glorious nation of the Republic, the High Court of California recommends the following verdict. Day is hereby sentenced to death." The crowd erupts again. The soldiers hold them back. "By firing squad, to be carried out 4 days from today, on December 27th at 6 p.m., Ocean Standard Time, in an undisclosed location." 4 days? How will I save my brothers before then? I lift my head and fix my eyes on the crowd. "To be broadcast live across the city. Civilians are encouraged to stay vigilant for any possible criminal activity that may occur before and after the event." They will make an example of me. "And to report any suspicious activity immediately to the street police or to the police headquarters closest to you. This officially concludes our sentencing." The judge straightens and steps away from the podium. The crowd continues to push against the soldiers. They're shouting, cheering, booing. I feel myself being dragged back onto my feet. Before they can start ushering me inside Batalla Hall, I catch a last glimpse of the girl staring at me. Her expression looks blank, but behind it, something flickers. The same emotion I'd seen on her face before she knew my real identity. It's only there for a moment, and then it's gone. I'm supposed to hate you for what you did, I think, but her eyes linger on me in a way that refuses to let me. After the sentencing, Commander Jameson doesn't let her soldiers take me back to my cell. Instead, we step into an elevator held up by enormous cogs and chains and go up to a level, and then another, and then another. An elevator takes us up to the roof of Batalla Hall, 12 stories high, where the shadows from surrounding buildings don't protect us from the sun. Commander Jameson leads the soldiers to a flat, circular stand in the middle of the roof, a stand with the Republic seal embedded in it and strings of heavy chains hooked around its rim. The girl brings up the rear. I can still feel her eyes on my back. When we reach the center of the circle, the soldiers force me to stand while they bind my shackled hands and feet to the chains. "Keep him up here for 2 days, Commander Jameson says. Already the sun has blurred my vision, and the world looks bathed in the haze of sparkling diamonds. The soldiers let go of me. I sink to the ground on my hands and my good knee, chains clacking as I go. "Agent I. Paris, head this up. Check on him now and then and make sure he doesn't die before his execution date." The girl's voice pipes up. "Yes, ma'am." "He's allowed 1 cup of water a day, 1 food ration." The commander smiles, then tightens her gloves. "Be creative when you're giving it to him, if you wish. I'll bet you can make him beg for it." "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Commander Jameson addresses me one final time. "Looks like you're finally behaving. Better late than never." Then she walks away and disappears into the elevator with the girl, leaving the rest of the soldiers to stand guard. The afternoon is quiet. I slip in and out of consciousness. My injured leg throbs to the beat of my heart, sometimes fast and sometimes slow, sometimes so hard that I think I'm going to pass out. My mouth cracks each time I move it. I try to think of where Eden might be, the Central Hospital Lab, or a medical division of Batalla Hall, or even a train headed to the war front. They'll keep him alive, that I'm sure of. The Republic won't kill him until the plague does. But John, what they've done with him I can only guess. They may keep him alive in case they want to squeeze more information out of me. Maybe both of us will be executed at the same time. Or he could be already dead. A new pain stabs at my chest. I think back to the day I took my trial, when John came to pick me up and saw me being taken away in a train with others who had failed. After I had escaped from the lab and developed the habit of watching my family from a distance, I occasionally saw John sitting at our dining room table, with his head in his hands, sobbing. He's never said it aloud, but I think he blames himself for what happened to me. He thinks he should have protected me more, helped me study more. Something. Anything. If I can escape, I still have time to save them. I can still use my arms, and I have one good leg. I could still do it, if only I knew where they were. The world fades in and out. My head slumps against the cement stand, and my arms lie motionless against the chains. Memories of my trial day flash before me. The stadium, the other children, the soldiers guarding every entrance and exit, the velvet ropes that kept us separated from the kids of rich families, the physical trial, the written exam, the interview. The interview, more than anything. I remember the panel that questioned me, a group of 6 psychiatrists, and the official who'd led them, the man named Chian, who had a uniform adorned with medals. He asked the most questions. What is the Republic's national pledge? Good. Very good. It says here on your school report that you like history. What year did the Republic officially form? What do you enjoy doing in school? Reading. Yes, very nice. A teacher once reported you for sneaking into a restricted area of the library, looking for old military texts. Can you tell me why you did that? What do you think of our illustrious Elector Primo? Yes, he is indeed a good man, and a great leader. But you are mistaken to call him those things, my boy. He's not a man like you and me. The correct way to address him is, our glorious father. Yes, your apology is accepted. His questions went on forever, dozens and dozens of them, each more mind-bending than the last, until I couldn't even be sure why I'd answered as I did. Gian wrote notes on my interview report the whole time, while one of his assistants recorded the session with a tiny microphone. I thought I'd answered well enough. At least I was careful to say things that I thought would please him. But they then led me onto a train, and the train took us to the lab. The memory makes me shiver, even as the sun continues to beat down, baking my skin until it hurts. I have to save Eden, I say to myself over and over again. Eden turns 10 in 1 month. When he recovers from the plague, he'll have to take the trial. My injured leg feels like it could burst right out of my bandages and swell to the size of the roof. Hours pass. I lose track of time. Soldiers rotate in and out of their shifts. The sun changes position. Then, just as the sun mercifully starts to set, I see someone emerge from the elevator and make her way toward me. June. I hardly recognize Day, even though it's only been 7 hours since the sentencing. He lies crumpled in the center of the Republic seal. His skin looks darker, and his hair is completely matted down with sweat. Dried blood still clings to one long strand of hair, as if he chose to dye it. It looks almost black now. He turns his head in my direction as I approach. I'm not sure if he can see me, though, because the sun hasn't completely set and is probably blinding him. Another prodigy, not just an average one. I've met other prodigies before, but certainly never one that the Republic decided to keep hidden, especially one with a perfect score. One of the soldiers lining the circular stand salutes me. He's sweaty, and his pith helmet doesn't protect the skin from the sun. Agent I. Paris, he says. His accent's from Ruby Sector, and his uniform's row of buttons are freshly polished. Pay attention to details. I glance at the other soldiers before looking back at him. You're all dismissed for now. Tell your men to get some water and shade, and send an order up for your replacements to come early. Yes, ma'am. Soldier clicks his heels together before shouting a dismissal to the others. When they leave the roof and I'm alone with Day, I remove my cape and kneel down to see his face better. He squints at me, but stays quiet. His lips are so cracked that a little blood has trickled down to his chin. He's too weak to talk. I look down toward his wounded leg. It's much worse than it was this morning, not surprisingly, and is swollen to twice its normal size. An infection must have set in. Blood oozes from the edges of the bandage. I absently touch the knife wound at my own side. It doesn't hurt much anymore. We'll have to get that leg checked. I sigh, then remove the canteen hanging at my belt. Here, have some water. I'm not allowed to let you die yet. I dribble water on his lips. He flinches at first, but then opens his mouth and lets me pour a thin stream in. I wait while he swallows. He takes forever, and then let him take another long drink. Thanks, he whispers. He lets out a dry laugh. Guess you can go now. I study him for a moment. His skin is burned and his face drenched with sweat, but his eyes are still bright, if a bit unfocused. I suddenly remember the first moment I saw him. Dust everywhere, and out of that emerged this beautiful boy with the bluest eyes I'd ever seen, holding his hand out to help me to my feet. "Where are my brothers?" he whispers. "Are they both alive?" I nod. "Yes." "And Tess is safe? No one's arrested her?" "Not to my knowledge." "What are they doing with Eden?" I think back to what Thomas told me, that the generals from the war front have come to see him. "I don't know." Day turns his head away and closes his eyes. He concentrates on breathing. "Well, don't kill them," he murmurs. "They didn't do anything. And Eden, he's not a lab rat, you know." He's silent for a minute. "I never got your name. Guess it's no big deal now, is it? You already know mine." I stare at him. "My name is June I. Paris." "June," Day murmurs. I feel a strange warmth at the sound of my name on his lips. He turns to face me. "June, I'm sorry about your brother. I didn't know anything would happen to him." I'm trained not to take the word of a prisoner. I know that they'll lie, that they'll say anything they can to make you more vulnerable. But this feels different, somehow. He sounds so genuine, so curious. What if he is telling me the truth? What if something else happened to Matthias that night? I take a deep breath and force myself to look down. Logic above all else, I tell myself. Logic will save you when nothing else will. "Hey," I remember something else now. "Open your eyes again and look at me." He does as I say. I lean over to study him. Yes, it's still there. That strange little blemish in one of his eyes, a ripple in an otherwise ocean blue iris. "How did you get that thing in your eye?" I gesture at my own. "That imperfection." Something must have sounded funny because Day laughs once before bursting into a coughing fit. "That imperfection was a gift from the Republic." "What do you mean?" He hesitates. I can tell he's having trouble forming his thoughts. "I've been in the lab of the Central Hospital before, you know, on the night I took my trial." He tries to lift a hand to point to his eye, but the chains clank together and drag his arm back down. "They injected something." I frown. "The night of your 10th birthday? What were you doing in the lab? You were supposed to be on your way to the labor camps." Day smiles as if he's about to fall asleep. "I thought you were a smart one." Apparently, the sun hasn't baked all the attitude out of him yet. "And what about your old knee injury?" "Your Republic gave me that too, on the same night I got my eye imperfection." "Why would the Republic give you those wounds, Day? Why would they want to damage someone who got a perfect 1,500 on his trial score?" This catches Day's attention. "What are you talking about? I failed my trial." He doesn't know either. Of course he wouldn't. I lower my voice to a whisper. "No, you didn't. You got a perfect score." "Is it some kind of trick?" Day moves his injured leg a little and tenses up in pain. "A perfect score? Ha! I don't know anyone who's ever gotten a 1,500. I cross my arms. "I did." He raises an eyebrow at me. "You did? You're the prodigy with the perfect score?" "Yes," I nod at him. "And apparently, so were you." Day rolls his eyes and looks away again. "That's ridiculous." I shrug. "Believe what you want." "Doesn't make sense. Shouldn't I be in your position? Isn't that the point of your precious trial?" Day looks like he wants to stop, hesitates, then continues. "They injected something into one of my eyes that stung like wasp poison. They also cut up my knee with a scalpel. Then they force-fed me some kind of medicine, and the next thing I knew, I was lying in a hospital basement with a bunch of other corpses. But I wasn't dead." He laughs again. It sounds so weak. "Great birthday." They experimented on him, probably for the military. This I'm sure of now, and the thought makes me ill. They were taking tiny tissue samples from his knee, as well as from his heart and his eye. His knee they must have wanted to study for his unusual physical abilities, his speed and agility. His eye? Maybe it wasn't an injection, but an extraction, something to test why his vision was so sharp. His heart, they fed him medicine to see how low his heart rate could go, and they were probably disappointed when his heart temporarily stopped. That's when they thought he died. The reasoning for all this becomes clear. They wanted to develop those tissue samples into something. I don't know what. Pills, contact lenses, whatever could improve our soldiers, to make them run faster, see better, think smarter, or endure harsher conditions. All this flies through my head in a second before I can stop it. No way. This isn't in line with Republic values. Why waste a prodigy in this way? Unless they saw something dangerous in him, some defiant spark, the same rebellious spirit he has now, something that made them think it'd be riskier to educate him than to sacrifice his possible contributions to society. Last year, 38 kids scored higher than 1,400. Maybe the Republic would want to make this one disappear. But Day is not just any prodigy. He has a perfect score. What was it then that made them nervous? Can I ask you a question now? Day asks. Is it my turn? Yes. I look over to the elevator where a new rotation of guards has just arrived. I hold up a hand and tell them to stay where they are. You can ask. I want to know why they took Eden away. The plague. I know you rich folks have it easy. New plague vaccinations every year and whatever meds you need. But haven't you wondered? Haven't you wondered why it never goes away? Or why it comes back so regularly? My eyes dart back to him. What are you trying to say? Day manages to focus his eyes on me. What I'm trying to say, yesterday, when they dragged me out of my cell, I saw that red 0 stamped on some double doors in Batalla Hall. I've seen numbers like that in Lake, too. Why would they show up in the poor sectors? What are they doing out there? What are they pumping into the sectors? I narrowed my eyes. You think the Republic is intentionally poisoning people? Day, you're on dangerous ground. But Day doesn't stop. Instead, his voice takes on a more urgent tone. That's why they wanted Eden, right? He whispers. To see the results of their mutated plague virus. Why else? They want to prevent whatever new disease he's spreading. Day laughs, but again it makes him cough. No, they're using him. They're using him. His voice grows quiet. They're using him. His eyes grow heavy. The strain of talking has worn him out. You're delirious, I reply. But while Thomas's touch now repulses me, I feel no revulsion toward Day. I should, but the feeling just doesn't come. A lie like that is treason against the Republic. Besides, why would Congress authorize such a thing? Day doesn't take his eyes off me, and just when I think he's lost the strength to respond, his voice comes out sounding even more insistent. Think about it this way. How do they know what vaccines to give you every year? They always work. Don't you find it strange that they can make vaccines that match the new plague that's popped up? How can they predict which vaccine they'll need? I sit back on my heels. I've never questioned the annual vaccinations we're required to have. Never had any reason to doubt them. Why should I? My father used to work behind those double doors, working hard to find new ways to combat the plague. No, I can't listen to this anymore. I pluck my cape from the ground and tuck it under my arm. One more thing, Day whispers as I stand. I glance down at him. His eyes burn right into me. You think we go to labor camps if we fail? June, the only labor camps are the morgues and hospital basements. I don't dare linger. Instead, I walk away from the platform, away from Day. But my heart pounds against my chest. The soldiers waiting by the elevator stand even straighter as I approach. I arrange my face in an expression of pure irritation. Unchain him, I order one of the soldiers. Take him down to the hospital wing and get that leg fixed. Give him some food and water. He won't last the night otherwise. The soldier salutes me, but I don't bother to look at him before shutting the elevator door. Day. I have nightmares again. This time they're of Tess. I'm running in the streets of Lake. Somewhere ahead of me, Tess is running too, but she doesn't know where I am. She turns left and right, desperate to see my face, but all she finds are strangers and street police and soldiers. I call out for her, but my legs can barely move, as if I'm wading through a thick sludge. "Tess!" I shout. "I'm here, right behind you." She can't hear me. I look on helplessly as she runs into a soldier, and when she tries to turn away from him, he grabs her and throws her to the ground. I scream something. The soldier lifts his gun and points it at Tess. Then I see this not Tess, but my mother, who lies in a puddle of blood. I try to run to her, but instead I stay hidden behind a chimney on a roof, crouched like a coward. It's my fault. She's dead. Then, suddenly, I'm back in the hospital lab again, and the doctors and nurses are standing over me. I squint in the blinding light. Pain shoots through my leg. They're cutting open my knee again, pulling back fresh flesh to reveal the bones underneath, scraping at it with their scalpels. I arch my back and scream. One of the nurses tries to hold me down. My flailing arm knocks over a tray somewhere. "Hold still! Damn it, boy! I'm not going to hurt you!" Takes me a minute to wake up. The blurry hospital scene shifts, and I realize I'm staring up at a similar fluorescent light and that a doctor is hovering over me. He wears goggles and a face mask. I give a shout and try to bolt upright, but I'm tied to an operating table by a pair of belts. The doctor sighs and slides his face mask down. "Look at me, bandaging up a criminal like you when I could be helping soldiers from the war front." I look around, confused. Guards line the walls of the hospital room. A nurse is cleaning bloody equipment at the sink. "Where am I?" The doctor gives me an impatient look. "You're in Batalla's Hall's hospital wing. Agent Paris ordered me to fix up your leg. Apparently, we're not allowed to let you die before your formal execution." I lift my head as far as I can and look down at my leg. Clean bandages cover up the wound. When I try to move the leg a little, I notice with surprise that the pain is far less than before. I glance at the doctor. "What did you do?" He only shrugs, then peels off his gloves and starts washing his hands at one of the sinks. "Patch things up a bit. You'll be able to stand for your execution." He pauses. "Don't know if that's what you wanted to hear." I slump back down on the gurney and close my eyes. The diminished pain on my leg is a relief, such a relief that I try to savor it, but pieces of my nightmare still linger in my mind, too fresh to put back away. Where is Tess? Where's Tess now? Can she make it without someone there to watch her back? She's nearsighted. Who will help her when she can't make out the shadows in the night? As for my mother, I'm not strong enough to think about her right now. Someone raps loudly on the door. "Open up," a man calls out. "Commander Jameson's here to see the prisoner." The prisoner. I smile at that. The soldiers don't even like calling me by my name. The guards in the room barely have time to unlock the door and move out of the way before Commander Jameson bursts in, clearly annoyed. She snaps her fingers. "Get this boy off the gurney and put him in some chains," she barks. Then she shoves one finger into my chest. You're just a kid. You never even went to college. You failed your trial. How were you ever able to outsmart soldiers on the streets? How do you cause so much trouble?" She bares her teeth at me. "I knew you'd be a bigger nuisance than you're worth. You have a knack for wasting my soldiers' time, not to mention the soldiers of several other commanders." I have to grit my teeth to keep from shouting back at her. Soldiers hurry over to me and start undoing the gurney's belts. Beside me, the doctor bows his head. "If you don't mind, Commander," he says. "Has something happened? What's going on?" Commander Jameson fixes her furious gaze on him. He shrinks away. "Protesters in front of Batalla Hall," she snaps. "They're attacking the street police." The soldiers pull me off the gurney and onto my feet. I wince as my weight transfers onto my bad leg. "Protesters?" "Yes, rioters." Commander Jameson grabs my face. "My own soldiers had to be called in to help, which means my schedule is entirely disrupted. I've already had one of my best men sent in here with lacerations on his face. Filthy cons like you don't know how to treat our military boys." She shoves my face away in disgust and turns her back on me. "Take him away," she calls out to the soldiers holding me. "Be quick about it." We exit the hospital room. Soldiers rush back and forth in the hallway. Commander Jameson keeps pressing a hand against her ear, listening intently, then shouting orders. As I'm dragged toward the elevators, I see several large monitors, something I pause to admire for a second, as I've never seen them in the lake sector, broadcasting exactly what Commander Jameson just told us. I can't hear the voiceover, but the text headlines are unmistakable. Disturbance outside Batalla Hall. Units responding. Await further orders. This isn't a public broadcast, I realize. The video shows the square in front of Batalla Hall packed with several hundred people. I pick out the line of black-clad soldiers struggling to contain the crowd near the front. Other soldiers run along the rooftops and ledges, hurrying into position with their rifles. I get a good look at some of the protesters as we pass the last monitor, the ones clustered together under the streetlights. Some of them have painted a blood-red streak into their hair. Then we arrive at the elevators and the soldiers shove me inside. They're protesting because of me. The thought fills me with excitement and dread. No way will the military let this slide. They'll seal off the poor sectors entirely and arrest every last rioter in the square. Or they'll kill them. June. When I was young, Matthias was sometimes called away to deal with minor rebellions, and afterward he'd tell me about them. The story was always the same. A dozen or so poor folk, usually teens, sometimes older, causing trouble in one of the sectors, angry about the plague quarantines or taxes. Several dust bombs later, they were all arrested and taken to court. But I've never seen a riot like this one, with hundreds of people risking their lives. Nothing even close to this. What's wrong with these people? I asked Thomas. They've lost their minds. We're standing on the raised platform outside Batalla Hall with his entire patrol facing the crowd in front of us, while another of Commander Jameson's patrols is pushing people back with shields and batons. Earlier, I'd peeked in on Day as the doctor operated on his leg. I wonder if he's awake and seeing this chaos on the hall monitors. I hope not. No need for him to see what he started. The thought of him and his accusation against the Republic, that the Republic creates the plagues, kills kids who fail the trial, fills me with rage. I pull my gun out of its holster. Might as well have it ready. Ever seen something like this? I ask, trying to keep my voice even. Thomas shakes his head. Only once, a long time ago. Some of his dark hair falls across his face. It's not combed back as nicely as usual. He must have been out in the crowds earlier. One hand lingers on the gun strapped to his belt, while the other rests on a rifle slung around his shoulder. He doesn't look at me. He hasn't looked at me straight on since he tried kissing me last night in the hall. Bunch of fools, he replies. If they don't back down soon, the commanders will make them regret it. I glance up to see several commanders standing at one of Batalla Hall's balconies. It's too dark now to be sure, but I don't think Commander Jameson is with them. I know she's giving orders with her mouthpiece, though, because Thomas listens intently with one hand pressed against his ear. But whatever she's saying is only for Thomas, and I have no idea what she's telling him. The crowd below us continues to push. I can tell from their clothes, torn shirts and trousers, mismatched shoes filled with holes, that almost all of them are from the poor sectors near the lake. Secretly, I will them to disperse. Get out of here before things get worse. Thomas leans over to me and nods toward the center of the crowd. See that pitiful bunch? I've already noticed what he's pointing out, but I still follow his gaze politely. A group of protesters have streaked their hair scarlet, imitating the blood-stained lock Day had when he'd stood out here for his sentencing. A poor choice for a hero, Thomas goes on. Day will be dead in less than a week. I nod once, but say nothing. A few screams echo from the crowd. One patrol has made its way around to the back of the square, and now they have the crowd boxed in, pushing people in toward the square's center. I frown. This isn't protocol for handling an unruly mob. In school, we were taught that dust bombs or tear gas is more than enough to do the job, but there's no sign of that. None of the soldiers wears gas masks. And now, yet another patrol has started chasing away the stragglers gathered around the square, where the streets are too chaotic and narrow to protest properly. What's Commander Jameson telling you? I ask Thomas. Thomas's dark hair falls across his eyes and covers his expression. She says to stay put and wait for her command. We don't do anything for a good half hour. I keep one hand in my pocket, absently rubbing Day's pendant. Somehow, the crowd reminds me of Skiz. There's probably even some of the same people. That's when I see soldiers running along the tops of the square's buildings. Some hurry along ledges, while others are gathered in a straight line across the roofs. Odd. Soldiers usually have black tassels and a single row of silver buttons on their jackets. Their arm insignias are navy blue or red or silver or gold. But these soldiers have no buttons on their jackets. Instead, a white stripe runs diagonally across their chests, and their armbands are gray. It takes me another second to realize who they are. Thomas. I tap him and point up to the roof. Executioners. No surprise on his face, no emotion in his eyes. He clears his throat. So they are. What are they doing? My voice rises. I glance to the protesters in the square, then back up to the roofs. None of the soldiers have dust bombs or tear gas. Instead, each one has a gun slung over his shoulder. They're not dispersing them, Thomas. They're trapping them in. Thomas gives me a stern look. Hold steady, June. Pay attention to the crowd. As my eyes stay turned up toward the roofs, I notice Commander Jameson step out on the top of Batalla Hall flanked by soldiers. She speaks into her mouthpiece. Several seconds pass. A terrible feeling builds up in my chest. I know where this is going. Thomas suddenly murmurs something into his mic, a response to a command. I glance at him. He catches my gaze for a second, and then he looks toward the rest of the patrol standing on the platform with us. Fire at will, he shouts. Thomas! I want to say more, but in that instant, shots ring out from both the roofs and the platform. I lunge forward. I don't know what I plan to do, wave my arms in front of the soldiers, but Thomas grabs my shoulder before I can step forward. Stay back, June. Tell your men to stand down, I shout, scrambling out of his grasp. Tell them... That's when Thomas throws me to the ground so hard that I feel the wound in my side break open. Damn it, June, he says. Stay back. The ground's surprisingly cold. I crouch there, for once at a loss, unable to move. I don't really understand what just happened. The skin around my wound burns. Bullets rain down on the square. People in the crowd collapse like levees in a flood. Thomas, stop. Please stop. I want to get up and scream in his face, to hurt him somehow. Matthias would kill you for this, Thomas, if he were alive. But instead, I cover my ears. The gunshots are deafening. The gunfire only lasts a minute, if that, but it seems like forever. Thomas finally shouts an order to cease fire, and those in the crowd who haven't been shot fall to their knees and throw their hands up over their heads. Soldiers rush to them, cuffing their arms behind their back, forcing them together into clusters. I push myself up onto my knees. My ears still ring from the gunfire. I scan a scene of blood and bodies and prisoners. There are 97, 98 dead? No, at least 120. Hundreds more are in custody. I can't even concentrate enough to count them. Thomas glances at me before stepping off the platform. His face is grave, even guilty. But I know with a sinking feeling that he feels guilty only for throwing me to the ground, not for this massacre he's leaving behind. He heads back toward Batalla Hall with several soldiers. I turn my face away so I don't have to watch him. Day. We ride up several floors until I hear the elevator's chains coming to a scraping halt. 2 soldiers drag me out into a familiar hallway. They're returning to my cell, I guess, at least for now. For the first time since waking up on the gurney, I realize I'm exhausted and slump my head against my chest. The doctor must have injected me with something to keep me from flailing around too much during the operation. Everything around me looks blurred at the edges, as if I'm sprinting. Then, the soldiers come to a sudden stop halfway down the corridor, a good distance away from my cell. I look up in mild surprise. We stand outside one of the rooms I'd noticed earlier, the ones with clear glass windows. Interrogation chambers. So, they want more information before they execute me. Static. Then a voice comes through one of the soldier's earpieces. The soldier nods. Let's take him in, he says. Captain says he'll arrive shortly. I stand inside, waiting as the minutes tick. Guards with blank faces stand at the door, while 2 others hold my shackled arms. I know this room is supposed to be more or less soundproof, but I swear I hear the sound of guns and the vibrations of distant screams. My heart pounds. The troops must be firing on the crowd in the square. Are they dying because of me? More time passes. I wait. My eyelids grow heavy. I want nothing more than to curl into a ball in a corner of my cell and sleep. Finally, I hear footsteps approaching. The door swings open to reveal a young man dressed in black, with dark hair that falls over his eyes. Silver epaulets sit on each shoulder. The other soldier clicks their heels together. The man waves them off. Now I recognize him. This is the captain who shot my mother. June had mentioned him before. Thomas. Commander Jameson must have sent him. "Mr. Wing," he says. He approaches me and crosses his arms. "What a pleasure to formally meet you. I was beginning to worry that I'd never get the chance." I will myself to stay silent. He looks uncomfortable being in the same room as me, and his expression says that he really hates me. "My commander wants to come ask you some standard procedural questions before your execution date. We'll try to keep it cordial, although, of course, we started off on the wrong foot." I can't help choking out a laugh. "Really? You think so?" Thomas doesn't reply, but I see him swallow hard in an effort not to react. He reaches into his cloak and pulls out a small gray remote. He points it at the room's blank wall. A projection comes up. Some police report, with pictures of a person I don't recognize. "I'm going to show you a series of photos, Mr. Wing," he says. "The people you'll see are suspected of Patriot involvement." The Patriots had tried in vain to recruit me. Cryptic notes scrawled on alley walls above where I slept, an escort on a street corner who'd slipped me a note, a small parcel of money with a proposition. After ignoring their offers for a while, I stopped hearing from them. "I've never worked for the Patriots," I snap. "If I ever kill, I'll do it on my own terms." "You may claim no affiliation with them, but perhaps some have crossed your path, and perhaps you'd like to help us find them." "Oh, sure. You killed my mother? You can imagine I'm dying to help you out." Thomas manages to ignore me again. He glances at the first photo projected on the wall. "Know this person?" I shake my head. "Never seen him before." Thomas clicks the remote. Another photo pops up. "How about this one?" "Nope." Another photo. "How about this?" "Nope." Yet another stranger pops up onto the wall. "Seen this girl before?" "Never seen her in my life." More unfamiliar faces. Thomas goes through them without blinking an eye or questioning my responses. What a stupid puppet of the state. I watch him as we continue, wishing I weren't chained so I could beat this man to the ground. More photos, more strange faces. Thomas doesn't question a single one of my terse responses. In fact, it seems like he can't wait to get out of this room and go far away from me. Then, a photo pops up of someone I do recognize. The blurry image shows a girl with long hair, longer than the bobbed cut I remember. No vine tattoo yet. Apparently, Cade is a patriot. I don't dare let the recognition show on my face. "Look," I say, "if I knew any of these people, do you really think I'd tell you?" Thomas is trying so hard to hold his composure. "That will be all, Mr. Wing." "Oh, come on, that's not all. I can tell you'd give anything to take a swing at me. So do it. I dare you." His eyes have taken on a furious glow, but he still holds back. "My orders were to ask you a series of questions," he says tightly. "That's it. We're done here." "Why? You afraid of me or something? Only brave enough to shoot people's mothers?" Thomas narrows his eyes, then shrugs. "She's just one less scum con to deal with." I clench my fist and spit right in his face. This seems to break his resolve. His left fist hits me hard across the jaw, and my head snaps to the side. Spots explode before my eyes. "Think you're a star, don't you?" he says. "Just because you pulled some pranks and played charity worker to some street scum? Well, let me tell you a secret. I'm from the poor sector too. But I followed the rules. I worked my way up. I earned my country's respect. The rest of you people just sit around and complain and blame the state for your bad luck. Bunch of dirty, lazy cons. He punches me again. My head rocks back and I taste blood in my mouth. My body trembles from the pain. He grabs my collar and pulls me close. My shackles clank. Miss I. Paris told me about what you did to her on the streets. How dare you force yourself onto someone of her rank? Ah, here's what's really bothering him. I guess he found out about the kiss. I can't help grinning, even though my face screams in pain. Ah, is that what you got you down? I've seen the way you look at her. You want her bad, huh? Is that something you're also trying to earn your way up to, Tot? I hate to burst your bubble, but I didn't force her into anything. A deep scarlet rage flashes across his face. She's looking forward to your execution, Mr. Wing. I can guarantee you that. I laugh. Sore loser, huh? Here, I'll make you feel better. I'll tell you all about what it was like. Hearing about it is the next best thing, isn't it? Thomas grabs my neck. His hands are shaking. I'd be careful if I were you, boy, he spits. Maybe you've forgotten that you still have 2 brothers, both at the mercy of the Republic. Watch your tongue, unless you want to see their bodies lined up next to your mother's. He hits me again. Then one of his knees slams into my stomach. I gasp for air. I picture Eden and John and force myself to calm down, force away the pain. Stay strong. Don't let him get to you. He hits me 2 more times. He's breathing hard now. With a great effort, he lowers his arms and exhales. That will be all, Mr. Wing, he says in a low voice. I'll see you on your execution day. I can't speak through the pain, so I just try to keep my eyes focused on him. He has a strange expression, as if he's angry or disappointed that I forced him from his orderly state. He turns and leaves the room without a word.